Hey everyone, it's MetaGamesGX here, and I'm going to be showing you guys why Lad is so good, especially right now. I'm going to show you two different scenarios where it's really good. I have this first replay against Tenpai. In the first game, you guys will see I get shifted. I chain High Spirits onto Saranir, which is why High Spirits is so good at the end of the day, because the fact that you can chain it to things like Droll or Shifters, and then also just extend. So I put Albion in the graveyard, and I don't chain the Saranir. At this point, I just go Branded Fusion. I could have went Cartesia there, but I felt like it was okay to be able to do this. I probably should have went Cartesia. But I end up banishing Mercurier since I already have a Dark Dragon in the graveyard. And so I can get the Albaz to hand, which is pretty important in general. So then I can fuse back the two Dark Dragons in order to go into the Borreload Furious Dragon. Then I can go Cartesia, and this sets up the Lad board under Shifter. So essentially, what happens is this is the 2-card combo I've showed off. It's 2.5-card combo. It's essentially Brand Fusion plus Cartesia plus a Dark Dragon. And then you can end on a Borreload Furious with a Lubellion plus the Cartesia. And then you are able to then go into Cartesia after you've popped with Boral and to make the Lads. So then I set the Retribution. I'm lucky I also had that. Because the High Spirits on Shifter, then he goes Sangan Summoning. I just let that through. He goes Tenpai Pydra, at which point I pop the Boral, and then I pop Lubellion, and then I chain the Cartesia to be able to fuse. And he lets that go through. I chain that onto the Boral on the same chain, because obviously if I use the Borreload Furious as a target to pop, also then I can just fuse it off with Cartesia, and it's basically free fodder. And then we make the Light and Darkness Dragonlord. This guy, if you don't know, it's level 9 Light Dragon, must be fusion summon. It's also a dark. Once per chain, if a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated, quick effect, this card loses exactly 1,000 attack and defense if it does negate the activation. So basically it is a mandatory 3 omni negates, which is pretty good. And also then it floats if it goes to the graveyard by being destroyed by opponent's card. You can target one dragon and monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You cannot summon itself because it must be fusion summon, but you can use other cards, so it's very cool in that regard. And the fact is, he's already on 3 cards. I have 3 negates here, and I'm popping the field spell, so he's not going to have a whole lot here. He does have the Sangan Kaiman, though, and I do have the Retribution, which is going to be able to get over anything else he might have. But then he does attack into the Cartesia, which I let through. There's nothing much else to do. He sets the Paw of Prosperity for bait, I guess, and then he sets Forbidden Droplet and Kaiman. And then I just go into main phase. I have the Lad, and there's really no point in me not just going battle phase, at which point so I can attack over the Pydra, because I need to be able to bait out the Lad's effects. A lot of time people will basically wall behind the Lad so they don't trigger the effects. So you have to, burn through your own effects, or you have to just beat down with Lad, which is usually just fine because it becomes a simplified board state. And he uses the Droplet here, which is interesting because then it kills the Lad, but then I'm able to go Lad effect, and I'm able to target the Albion in the graveyard, and then he goes Sangan Kaiman. Or no, I'm able to not go with the Albion because it wasn't properly summoned. And then he's going Sangan Kaiman into Fadra, and then Fadra is going to be able to get the Pydra, and then Pydra is going to be able to get the Sangan Kaiman follow-up, which is not a great situation. However, now that my Lad's outed, I can just start doing branded combo. I go Deployment into Cartesia effect into fusing with Albaz into Albion, then Albion effect banishing the Lad and the Albaz in my graveyard to go out to the Mirror Jade effect is going to be able to send the Titaniclad into banishing the Fadra, and then I can go end phase Titaniclad. So you guys see the Lane Darkness Dragon was actually really good there, honestly. He completely stopped his plays, and it made him have to completely out it, which he had to have the Droplet. If not, he was not outing that thing. So very good in Microcosm there. I go Titanclad into Quem into the end phase into Albaz, and then he's able to go Power Prosperity. Power Prosperity is going to just be fine. He doesn't mill anything great except for Dark Hole, which at this point I'm able to play around because I could obviously just go, or actually I don't even think the dark hole matters for me at this point, but I'm able to go into Quem because Pop Prosperity triggers Quem. I have a short coming out on this pretty soon. We've mentioned this in the Ultimate Branded Guide, so then I'm able to go into the Cartesia effect, fuse off the Albion, so I'm able to get the Albion in the end phase for more advantage, of course. Then I'm able to go into the Grand Guignol, and then he ashes the Grand Guignol. I would go into the Grand Guignol, so I can send the Saronir to go into Branded Opening, so I can protect my board, but he ashes that, which is fine. Then Dark Hole procs, and then I'm able to go into Mirror Jade effect, and which is fine. And then I'm able to go Branded Retribution on the Kaiman because that's his last card in hand, and I do have more than 2 names required for Retribution to proc, so that is going to be the game right there because he has no other cards, and I'm able to go into Cartesia effect. So you'll love to see it. The lad just being incredible. This is game 2. We'll show you quick. He basically draws all hand traps plus a board breaker. I'm able to draw Allure of Darkness in my starting hand. Double Allure of Darkness plus Edge plus Opening. You guys are going to see why this is so broken. I go Allure into Opening into Chain, or Deployment to Chain Opening. He chains Dogwood. Dogwood's just fine because then I'm able to pitch the Edge Chain to keep up my advantage off the opening. Go into Aluber, go into Cartesia, then I'm able to go Chain Link 1 Aluber. I summon out the Cartesia here so I can dodge any imperms or anything like that. And then I go Chain Link 2 Edge Imp, get the Patchwork, and then I get the High Spirits because I do have the Dark Dragon in hand. It's way better to search that over the Branded Fusion right there because I get more advantage this way and play around more hand traps. And then Patchwork goes off here, gets me the Poly, which is going to let me go into a Guardian Chimera sooner than later to bait out the back row. And then High Spirits comes out, sends out the Titan Clad plus the Saronir to search out the Spriggan's Kit. And then I'm able to go Saronir effect, sending the Retribution. Then I go Allure of Darkness. I draw a Cosmic Cyclone, which I sided in. I just like Cosmic, this format right now with Branded. It's really versatile for getting over like skill drain and stuff like that. It's also a quick effect for just like situations like this, so definitely not bad. I banished the extra Edge Chain since we've already used its effect. I target the Droplet, and then he's gonna have to chain it here. He does not chain it, actually. I'm surprised he doesn't just chain on Cartesia there. He probably should have just done that. And then Spriggan's Kit effect goes off. I'm able to then, but I'm still under Dogwood, which is fine because I'm just going to Gimmick Puppet him, you know. Like, Dogwood doesn't really matter against our deck if we're not actually pushed up against time. So we search out the Branded Fusion, and then I'm able to go Branded Fusion. He does have the Ash, though, by Chain Cartesia here. Go into the Grand Guignol. This is why he probably should have Dropleted there, because he would have forced me to kind of commit to something. Now I have a better idea of my board state. I go into Grand Guignol, attack with Kit. He does have Crow in hand. I do have the Retribution to target the opening. He lets this all through. I'm surprised he doesn't Crow my Titanic Lad. I was very confused about that. I'm not sure what he was saving that for. I think he needed it for a discard, so he had the Lightning Storm as well, in case he drew like the Kaiman, maybe. Then I go Quem. Go get the Fallen of Albaz Graveyard, then Albion will get the Branded in red for more follow-up, and he draws the Fadra, which does not extend. He draws the Genroku the next, but that will be the game right there. Alright, so we have another game from locals the other day at Heart of the Game, and I'm going against my man Tristan. He is on WhiteWoods Runick. Of course, one of the most popular new decks over here because it just gets so much advantage off the WhiteWoods cards. That deck is very, very good. Definitely look forward to seeing more people use that in the future, especially with the Azamina cards come up. So I win the die roll. Obviously I'm Brandon. I wanted to show you guys kind of just like why Lad is really good against something like a WhiteWoods Runick deck. I go Albion to then send for cost. I go Retribution. I can't remember my starting hand. I guess we'll be able to see more of it as we go. I do draw, and you know, Albion's always a decent start. I think I see Desires in there, so I plan on basically going through Puppet route before going Desires here, which is interesting. I usually just go for it anyway, I'm pretty sure. So I'm kind of just deciding my move here, but I do go for the normal summon Aluber, and he does Veiler it. So then, yeah, I'll show you guys. I go normal summon Aluber, he goes Veiler, which is fine. I do have a Poly in hand, though. That's why I sent the Retribution with a Saronir. So at this point, I have to decide which awkward fusion to make. It's basically either a Luber to make... I think I have a Quem as well, but it's basically either to make a Quertus. I don't have a Mud Dragon. Making Mud Dragon might be good here, but Quertus isn't terrible end board piece. It's just not what you want to see. And so then I send the Branded Fusion to graveyard to then get off the Branded Retribution, targeting the Branded Fusion to add it to the hand, which will allow me to then go into full combo because I still, I've used my normal summon, but I can obviously go for the standard Branded Fusion line. He does not have the Ash Blossom. I'm going to just send the Lubellion plus the Albaz, because in a board state like this, where I've gotten Veilored, I can't quite gimmick lock, so I'm just going to try to go for a Lad line here. Actually, with this hand, it's kind of, because I've already used my normal summon, I don't have any other light spellcasters in rotation, so I could have either gone Albion, send Cartesia plus Albaz to make Grand Guignol if I wanted to, and hoped he triggered the Grand Guignol, which WhiteWoods would, but I think this is just a better play because, guys, you don't always have to tunnel vision into the Sanctifier, even if and this is good practice. So I pitch the Quem off Lubellion, spin back the Lubellion plus the Albaz, and then that is going to then get me into the Albion into the Mirror Jade, and then I'm going to tribute over Albion for the Lubellion, go Lubellion effect to get the Branded Lost to activate that, so I can get some more advantage in the future. I then will basically, I only have one card in hand, but I do have a Albion in a Dream, so I can set at least Branded in red with the Quem in the graveyard. I do have the Branded, the Lost, which will be able to give me a very relevant search next turn. If I want to make the Lad, I need to get an Albion, because I do have the Lubellion on the board, but now I just need a Dark Dragon. So if I have any way to revive that Albion, or, get into a Shrouded Dragon to hand, that's kind of my route, to have a Mirror Jade plus, a Lad, which should be able to get over whatever he has at that point. But so I'll show you guys. I do go for the Branded in red here, and my logic is kind of like, I think that, I think Lad would be very good against the WhiteWoods deck. I'm not sure if they could play through a Mirror Jade banish plus 3 Omni negates. I mean, they do have multiple effects on their cards and triggers when certain things happen, so it might be easy for them in quick effects. So the quick effects are always the downfall of Lad, but here I just go for the Mirror Jade play in the end phase, sending Titanic Lad so I can extend a little bit more and then get a Quem out to the field, which this is why I was like, if I don't get Quem here, I don't quite get to the Lad, and if I don't get to Lad here, then I'm not sure what I'm doing. So because yeah, no, I'm gonna go for the go for Quem, send the Albaz, so I at least have that in the graveyard. I took away my Mirror Jade banish, but I think that's just fine, all things considered, because I'm going to be able to get a search off of the Lost, which will end up being a Mercurier or something. So then he goes into Runick Destruction. Also, the stream goes out for a second, and that is going to target the Branded Lost. I banish 4. He banishes the Mercurier, so I'm able to then go for the Shrouded Dragon search automatically, which I was like, wow, that's perfect, because now I could just make the Lad straight up and he can't do anything. So, like, maybe I should have waited for him, though, to start doing things. You guys will have to let me know, but at this point, I'm like, well, I got Shrouded Dragon, might as well go Branded in red, right? So at this point, I'm going to just go Branded in red, targeting the... I have Albaz, Aluber, and Quem, so I have a bunch of different targets for the red. It's just kind of what I want for follow-up. I think the Quem is not bad, especially when I don't have Retribution in rotation. So then I just banish the Shrouded Dragon plus the Lubellion for the Light and Darkness Dragonlord, which is, of course, the 3 Omni negates plus it floats. I do have ample enough dragons in graveyard plus itself. I could just summon out Albaz if I wanted to. That's why I kept the Albaz in the graveyard. So, being able, if they out the, the Lad, of course, I'll be able to go into the Albaz. So very, very good just contingency plan. It pays for itself. I think Lad is a very high value card, high quality card. This is me just kind of testing out the card more. And like, I was very impressed with it from the last game, but you guys are going to see it kind of put in work here. So at this point, he has 4 cards in hand. I do have 4 negates, or 3 negates. So if he has the perfect hand, he can play around this. And so he goes Runick Fountain, and then I go Lad to negate because that's mandatory. Then he chains Runick Flashing, or Freezing Curses, which is going to negate the effect of Lad, because he's able to chain to it, and it's only once per chain. That's the one downfall of Lad. It's once per chain. And at this point, I'm just like clarifying that is negating Runick Fountain for the rest of the turn. But of course, the Freezing Curse is going to mill and then negate lad, so lad is offline for the rest of the turn, which might seem bad from my perspective, but he can't go battle phase at this point, so he needs to get into Chengying plays in order to out the lad or the Mirror Jade, and he has 2 cards in hand, so, and one of them is a sleeping, this runic spell that no one uses essentially, but he does banish 3. So he is just getting me down there at that point, but he is able to go for the Runic Fountain, so it does work out for him. He is able to draw 3, he goes to 4 cards. He draws an Ash, I see, so that's interesting. I just think, you know, in this board state, he should probably be winning, but you guys will see that it was really hard for him to out because he doesn't have a battle phase, like I mentioned. So he has to go into a Chengying play. Their only way to really break a board is through the Chengying or the Chaos Angel play. So he goes to Stellar summon the Sylvie by pitching. I think he pitched the Runic spell. He opened his hand. So, and then he searches out a the White Forest, Tales of the White Forest. And then he's going to Synchro for 6 for the Silvera, which is their Synchro that allows them to book a moon or book of eclipse their opponent's entire field. So here, I'll just skip to it. And basically, it's a small body, but it basically books my whole board, which I'm not sure why he does. Like, maybe he has to in order to turn off certain effects, but all that's going to do is refresh my Mirror Jade and refresh my lad. So I just let him go through. I'm like, well, he can't kill me this turn unless he starts going to Chengying. Like, he needs to have a custom hand. If he starts Chengying looping, like, sure, that's fine. He can start getting over the lad, but he goes Sylvie, target the Silvera, summon out that. And then he's able to go to Tail since he has an illusion, or sorry, a spellcaster. He gets the Rusia, or Elzat, rather, and then he sends the Runic Fountain to get the Rusia. And at that point, he is able to go out to a Stellar. We love a Stellar in this household. He is going to go Rusia here. So he has a full board. If I had Nib here, it would be insane. But, like, also, I don't really want to quite Nib my board because I don't think he can quite do much. He's looking at the Chengying right now, but if we see those levels don't quite add up as much as you'd want them to, he needs to be able to synchro climb here, and then even then he can't guarantee any banishes since he's already exhausted all of his runic spells. So he goes into the level 6, which is going to be able to discard a reframing to then get another White Forest card. So I think he's just going to get the woes here. Yeah, he's just going to get the woes, which is their E-Tally, essentially. It's very good. It's actually such a good thrust target. It makes me want to run thrust in the White Forest because you're able to thrust even under Shifter with that card. So then he sinks off for an 8, presumably into the Diabel, which is his best card. I feel like maybe Diabel wasn't the best play here because he does get the reframing, but he knows I have a huge board. He needed to start setting up monsters that could take out my field, essentially, because I'm on not a whole lot of resources, and I have a Mirror Jade coming up. I have a Lad coming up, and the Mirror Jade's going to be his issue because he can't quite out it without it triggering. So then he goes into Rusia. He's going to be able to then he gets the reframing back from graveyard, so he has 1 omni negate and then sets 2. We already know one of them, and then I'm just going to be able to draw a card. I have a couple cards in hand, but I'm just going to be able to flip up the lad and everything. And at this point, I do misplay a little bit. We do want to, be honest about that. So at first, I flip up Albion instead of lad. I should have immediately flipped up lad or Mirror Jade so I could at least chain to one of his effects. It's probably flip up lad first, then Mirror Jade, but I flip up Albion, which is really bad because it gives him an opportunity to then target my face down lad with something if he has anything to do that with. But yeah, he lets me go Albion, and at that point, he just lets me continue. He's looking through his extra deck to... Then I go Mirror Jade, so I can chain Mirror Jade. Then I go Quem, and then I flip up the Lad. And the Lad is going to be really nice because, of course, it resets its attack points and defense points after being flipped. So now it has 3 more Omni Negates, which is pretty nice. So he has to deal with that all over again. Plus the Mirror Jade being reset if he ends up dealing with that, which is pretty good. Plus the Quem being online is really nice. He does have the woes, but he's going to have something to bait the lad once again, at least 2 spells essentially. He does go woes. He does have the reframing, of course, which will then not destroy because he doesn't have a Visas. in his on his field, which so it just negates, so lad will stay on the field. This is why I don't think reframing is very good in this deck unless you run the Visas. He wasn't able to bridge into it, I guess. And at that point we see my man just go into the Stellar. And then he goes into the Silvera again to basically book my whole board again. And that's just going to reset my Mirror Jade. But, you know, if he does anything runick related next turn, it's not going to be able to do a whole lot. So, but the thing is, my lad is just going to negate the Silvera anyway because it has more. So at that point, I'm just going to go Mirror Jade effect chain on Albion to then banish his Diabel. But, you know, so I'm able to go, well, he chain blocks the Silvera, and so I have to go lad on the Alzat in the graveyard, and then I chain Mirror Jade on the same chain before it gets flipped to then banish the Diabel, which is just fine. Or no, I think I banished the Silvera, but then I do have Thrust in hand, which is quite custom. The Thrust is going to then get me, but the Thrust gets immediately ashed, but then I have 2 cards in hand, Branded Opening plus a Quem, go Branded Opening into a Lubra, I search Branded Fusion, and he doesn't have a Veiler at this point, he doesn't have even a hand, so I'm able to free to play. I go Branded Fusion, I have like 1 Albaz in deck left, so this was very clutch for sure. And then I'm able to just, I should have gone Renbrum or Albion the Sanctifier Dragon here, but I kind of just misplayed because it was like the last round of the tournament, so I just was not thinking properly, I guess. You know, not really an excuse, but at this point I go into Lubellion. I thought I had a card in hand to discard, so it would have been correct to go Lubellion if I did have a card in hand to discard. This is where I notice I don't, but then I go into Lubellion because I'm like, okay, whatever, I can just like put up a big body. At that point we are in main 2 because I did try to go battle phase there before, so I'm not able to attack over there, which is just fine. So then I don't have too much here. My board's not great, but I still have the Mirror Jade and the Lad, so he draws 1 card, so he's not gonna, you know, he has 3 cards essentially, and this WhiteWoods cards, they do have graveyard effects sometimes, but they aren't that recursive. He doesn't have that many runick cards in graveyards, and he needs at least 2 cards to start his runick engine, but he does have the tip at least. If he had 1 other card, this could have been pretty good, but he has the tip, but he's gonna banish another Branded Fusion off the top. And the tip could either get like a fountain or something, but he doesn't have any other spells to activate, so if it's unfortunate. If he had another runick spell, he could have went fountain and probably done a lot there, but he goes into the effect negate, and then he goes into the effect negate to summon out. He doesn't play Sleipnir, so he just goes Hugin there. Hugin no effect because there's no discard, and he just sinks off for a level 6 into that to be no effect because there's nothing to send, and then he goes SP Little Knight to banish the Mirror Jade. He should have just banished the Lad here, but that was a misplay. He thought it was when it was face up, but nope, Lad will trigger when it's face down. Only says this card you control, so you know, I was controlling that. At that point I can resolve that effect, so SP Little Knight was kind of in it there, but and at that point I'm just going to be able to flip over and he just surrenders at that point. Alright guys, if you want to see anything else on the Light and Darkness Dragonlord, some more instances of it being broken or more combos, let me know down below. If this video gets 100 likes, we will do a follow-up, some more DB commentaries. We will be seeing you guys later. MetaGamesGX signing out.